These guys are absolutely out of this world. I mean, there's the pitting, which we'll get into later. There's reverses. There's stuff going on the tongues. There's crazy stuff on the insoles. The outsoles are all over the place. Up and down, front to back, these things are absolutely stellar. Brilliant shoe, amazing stuff on it. It's almost like every single panel on the shoe has something special going on. And my job today is to take you through that, go through it bit by bit and point out each of those parts to you so that you can get that idea. And that includes the two parts that I'm not so happy with. I know a lot of people out there are going to be talking about this shoe like it's absolutely flawless, but for me, it's just missing a tiny little detail, and it's enough to tip it for me into the sort of like, I wish it could have been better. But that's my personal opinion, and you should have a personal opinion too. And if it's different from mine, I truly appreciate to hear about it. So for me, it's almost there, but not quite. But for a lot of people, it's definitely going to be all there and then some. So let's get into it and take a close-up look at the upcoming release of the Nike SB Dunk Low Pro Stingwater. This is the Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel. Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel です。毎日アップするので、毎日見てください。Every single day. From Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And today in the spotlight is the March 10th drop of the Nike SB Dunk Low Pro Stingwater, and I just love the story of this shoe. I love some of the hits on it, especially the major hit on there with that pitting, which we'll get into later on. The reverse is going on, crazy stuff up on the tongues. It's like tons of stuff. All of these things on their own would be great features on a shoe, but having a ton of them all together like this is quite epic. But there is that one detail which we'll get into. But before we get into that, we need to talk about the brand Stingwater. Now, one of the sites that I go to regularly for my information about shoes, and I research every video before I bring it to you guys. It's not just random talking out of my hat. But they were talking about Stingwater, and it said something like the eccentric clothier and skateboard brand or something like that. And I was just like, okay, I'm definitely going to go over and check out their website and see what's going on. And one of the things I kind of appreciated about it is when I went there, all I could find was what's for sale, and that was it. And there was no about section or history section or like pitch or anything like that. It was just like, here's the product, do you want it or not? And I kind of appreciated that about it. So maybe that's why it's considered eccentric, because it's straight and true and there's no mess around it. But that's the brand Stingwater, and featuring in the shoe today is some of their own specific designs. But then on top of that, there's some stuff as well that's kind of it's new to me that they would do this on a dunk. So it's about that collaboration, but it's also about Nike. It's also about the dunk. So let's get into all that and have a look at it today. So I think I'll start with I should start with the thing that I'm just not that huge a fan of, because it's right beside the thing I'm a mental fan of, like epic mega fan of. And we're talking about the swoosh on either side, but we'll start with the lateral side first, because the swoosh on the medial side is slightly different. So we've got this tiny little swoosh, which for a start doesn't do it for me. Not a huge fan. It's embedded in a way, so it's because it's so small and then embedded, it's just, I don't know, it's clumsy. I don't know, it's like a trinket. It just doesn't like do it for me, this tiny little swoosh embedded into the shoe. And the sad thing is it's right beside this epic branding that like totally rocks it. It's amazing the way it says Stingwater and then it sort of falls away. This is their brand. It's not just for this shoe they've done this. Is something across their line. But the way the word sort of falls off the edge of the swoosh there, and I think this is absolutely beautiful. Normally you'd see this kind of branding at the heel on dunks, but they've gone and brought it forward to the midfoot and then put it right beside that tiny little swoosh, which would normally be our full-size swoosh on the side of these guys. So my least favorite hit and one of my favorite hits on the shoe side by side, but that's it. That's the only thing about the shoe that I'm not feeling, is the little embedded swooshes, and that's just me. And when we get around to the medial side, it's even worse, because that little embedded swoosh is now on its own without that Stingwater branding beside it, and it's reversed. So both of those things are just kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't quite fit the shoe for me, but that's just my personal opinion. What is also my personal opinion is the rest of the shoe is absolutely fire, and it's brilliant. My favorite bit, I had to work this out, and we'll give you the picture of it right here on the green screen so you can really get a sense of what I'm talking about. I'm calling this pitted. It's a pitted effect. I've seen it called splatter, and I couldn't disagree more. It's not splatter to me. Splatter is like when you have paint and you splatter it on something, so it's on it Whereas if you look at what's going on here, you can see that they've done something, some kind of drill effect that drills just into the very surface layer of the shoe and reveals like the grey below that. So it's an all red shoe basically, but this pitted effect that's drilled in random places. There's no sort of structure. It's not like lines, rows and columns sort of thing. It's just a random pitted effect into the leather of the shoe, and I think it's absolutely fire. It's very, very cool. I've not seen it before on any sneakers, let alone Dunks, and it's a really, really neat addition to these guys. And like I said, these kind of things would be enough on their own, and that's two already epic things, the way that the Stingwater branding is on the midfoot, and then this pitted effect that runs the full length of the shoe, toe box, quarterline, lacing system, and then down to that ankle and heel support there. So epic already, but there's more, and we're going to go to the tongues next, I think, because there's some wacky stuff going on up there. It looks more like a pair of jeans, you know, the label on the back of a pair of Levi's. It's got the same color and leather texture to it, and then it's not just your standard Nike branding up there. It does still have the swoosh and SB branding, but it's got this extra Stingwater branding on it, and I think it spells the word special in a special way as well. Special shoe, is it, or special something? And it's really, really unique take on the tongue branding on Dunks that I haven't seen before on this guy. It's very, very cool. And I suppose if we look at the front side, we might as well look at the epically unique back side of that and see what it says on the back of the tongues, because there's a little hidden thing in there with the mushroom as one part of that. And then the other thing that it says on there, it's back to front, and it says something that's empty your mind. That's what it says. It says empty your mind back to front on the back of the tongues there, which is very, very cool and a nice little addition to the shoe. Again, and like I say, these things would be epic on the, you know, just on their own, but they're all piling up in the shoe, and we're only about halfway through. So we get down to the insoles as well and see a bit of branding on there, a crazy hit of jade out of nowhere on this red and grey shoe, basically the grey being revealed by that pitted effect, and then suddenly we've got this jade on the inside, but it kind of sits okay with me. And then back to the rear end of the shoe. Now, I don't know the best way to do this. We'll do the branding first, and we'll look at that Nike branding on there, which A, is very cool because it's backwards, and B, it's even cooler because they still have that lopsided effect on the edge of it. So even though they've reversed it around, they've kept the lopsided bit on it, which is a staple of the SB line. So it's very cool to see that on the back of these guys. And the thing that I'm struggling with how the best to represent it, I think it's actually better to look at it if we have the back of the tongues back again. What I really want to focus in on is the lining of these guys, which is kind of a corduroy lining, a very bumpy, ridged effect material that runs through the lining of these guys and gives an extra sort of dimension, extra bit of feel to it. So, and then the last hit, I think, and we're probably on hit number 8 or something like that, is a dual hit of the translucent outsoles, looking right the way through to plant emojis with eyes. Is that right? On one shoe it's plant emojis and with eyes on the other shoe, and it's like, it's not just semi-translucent, it's fully translucent looking through to that. Reminds me of, if anyone knows this out there, the pigeons, the pigeon pandas with their see-through outsole that looks through to newspaper clippings on the midsole, but in the case of these guys, that see-through outsole still there, but instead of newspaper clippings, it's plant emojis with eyes. I think I'm right in saying it is. And it's the final little hit on this shoe to kind of close out this video. So I've given you it all, the whole thing, and it's a lot going on in there. The changed up swooshes, the branding on the midfoot there, the tongues with their unique take on the branding and on the back of the tongues, and then you've got the pitted effect through the whole thing, the branding on the insole, the reversed heel on there, the ridged corduroy lining, and then a translucent outsole that looks through to the words plant emoji with eyes. And it's just all over. All of these things are epic, and it just comes together to make an absolutely classic shoe. Personally, again, that little swoosh is the one thing that I wish it was different, but you know, you can't have everything. So so that's my take on these guys. Coming up on May 10th, now I'm shooting this video on, what's the date today? Is it April the 30th? I don't think it's the 30th, I think it's the 28th. It's a Wednesday, so you could work that out. I think it's the 28th. But I already have videos for the next couple of days, maybe 3 days lined up, so it's probably Saturday or Sunday's video, which means that we're about 10 days ahead of the drop date, which is just where I want to be to give you guys advice about what's coming around the corner, so you can then think about whether you want to get your hands on them. So hopefully this video has helped you make that decision. And all that's left for me to do is just finish it up and wrap this video up. It's another daily video, doing this every single day, non-stop, for close to 900 days now without a single day miss, and we're keeping it coming. So with that being said, because I do this every single day, I'd say the same thing at every single video, which is that I'm doing this every single day means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.